and I'm going to share my screen with you. So right. Okay, so can you see my screen over here? Let me just minimize that. Nope, we're on the wrong screen. So, yeah. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. We should be all set, ready to go. Let me I just need to see. Okay, right. And I'm just going to grab the chat box so that I can see when you're talking to me. Okay, so we just, I believe, had someone else join us, so welcome this morning. So I'm Sarah. So this is going to cover how you brand your business like a graphic designer. In that term, what I mean is just giving you some skills that graphic designers use. Yes, you will get a copy of the slides, and you can take copious amounts of notes if you like, but I hope, yes, please do, because there's lots of tips as we go through, but I think you can watch the recording as many times as you like. So once it's recorded, it will go up in about 48 hours and you'll be able to watch it back. It'll be on the Business Station YouTube channel. So, as I said, anybody that's missed that, if you just pop in the chat and let me know any questions as we go through. If I fail to spot it, because I'm obviously looking at various things on my screen, and I do have another screen over here as well. So if I fail to spot it, just kind of hold your hand up and let me, as in raise your hand on the Zoom screen, and let me know so I can see. Okay. So I'm just going to just pausing for a moment because my screen is, yeah, that's screen 2. Okay, I just want to make sure that you can actually see. Which screen can you see? Can you see a screen that's just got a blue background, or can you see a screen that's got a black and blue background? Because I'm having some trouble sharing this morning. Okay, lovely. So you've got the, you can see my little pointer going around on the screen now. Lovely. Okay, just making sure that we've got the right screen. Okay, so let's start with a bit about me. So basically, I'm Sarah. I've been in marketing for over, I'm just going to move my image as well. I have been in marketing for over 30 years. I've worked across a very broad range of industries, and I've had experience of working in agencies with freelance designers. I've trained as a designer, although I don't do it anymore, and I have used obviously Canva as well, and I do a course on Canva as well if anybody's interested in learning how to use that. So with that, I've I've had experience of actually designing my own brands. I've had experience of using graphic designers to brand them. And whilst I was always recommend that you get a professional, there are ways that we can look at, that we can show you how to, if you're going to do it yourself, how you could do it and what the kind of key tricks you should look out for. So we're going to have a look into branding. So these are some of the subjects that we're going to cover today. We're going to have a look at what is branding, how you discover it. We're going to discover how brands give meaning to your business. So how, when you do your branding, how that gives meaning and needs customer loyalty and helps you stand out from the competition, because that's at the end of the day what we're all trying to achieve. A brand can be defined as a lot of people think a brand is just a logo, but it's not. It's a name, it's a term, it's a sign, it's a symbol. It can be a combination of all of them. It can be intended to identify, well, its purpose is to identify your business, so, and to make you stand out. So in essence, it's how you enable your business to stand out from the endless sea of competitors that you're up against, and make sure that your customers come to you. So these are some of the topics that we're going to cover. We're going to have a look at how you achieve success with branding, the common attributes of branding, the benefits of it, how to create your brand. I'm going to show you a couple of things when you get it wrong, what can happen. So you always want to show it around before you get some, make sure you get some advice, and not just from family and friends. Ask some customers as well about your brand, because as you see, as we go through, it's got a whole purpose of what we're trying to achieve with it. And then we're going to look at how we make sure that you stay on track with keeping your brand all together, and then some brand awareness. So how you actually promote your brand. So what is branding? Well, essentially, it's a promise that you make to your customers. So it isn't just a logo, as I said before. Its purpose is to establish trust within your customers and loyalty, and it gives buyers a way to remember you. It's a strong brand is reflected in everything you do, from your customer service. If you think about it, with a McDonald's, and I'll use some of the big boys as examples, but it's McDonald's. Think of all your favorite brands. They're reflected in everything they do. It will be identical. So if we took McDonald's as an example, it wouldn't matter whether you went to McDonald's in Australia or in the UK or in America, you would get the same experience, because that is their brand. From their customer service to the way their staff look, to the way you walk in, to the way their toilets are designed, it's everything about them, and that paints a picture. And that's what branding is about. It's about storytelling. So it should set you apart completely from your competition, and it needs to express the quality, strengths and personality of your business. So you should always do, and we'll come on to this, a little bit of in-depth research about what you're trying to achieve, and then you should be able to come up with the brand. Creating a strong brand involves in-depth research. So you need to work out why customers should be attracted to your business. A strong brand will help customers to remember your business and feel greater confidence that your products or services will suit their needs. Customers tend to be loyal to a brand. If you think about it, before we go on much further, what brands are you loyal to? Pop in the box for a minute, in the chat box, and let me know. Think about what kind of brands, what kind of brands, yeah, Apple, exactly. Anybody else got some ideas, Sonia? What's branding to you? What kind of brands do you use regularly? What wouldn't you switch away from? Because sometimes you're so used to them that you don't even think about it. So for example, with myself, I can't use any other makeup tomato sauce other than Heinz. It's just my always go-to. I find others too vinegary, and even if they probably aren't, I've still got that brand image in my head that I know I can rely on. A bottle of Heinz is going to give me what I want. So, and that works across own brands too. And we'll cover a bit of own brands too, but I don't know whether you realise, but quite often the supermarket brands are actually, well, they are all made by the major manufacturers. They're just hidden. So quite often a Coles cornflakes will be made by Kellogg's, as an example. Why are you loyal to Apple? What makes you loyal to Apple, Karen? It's like, you know, as I said, I've just explained, yeah, it's easy to use, good customer service. Exactly. So do you see what we're doing here? We're painting a picture. You have to think about why you use things and, you know, what you use and why you use them, because that's going to help you to build your brand and the type of image that you want to create, and not just the image, but the whole tone of voice and everything else that you use. So as we go through, we'll kind of come across this again, but everything you do with branding as well has got to be consistent. So before you launch anything like a website, stationery, you're going to need to have designed your brand. You can't kind of go at it half-heartedly. It's got to be commit and go. So, oh, sorry, I flicked ahead too far. What makes a success? Let me just check I have gone to the right one. Yep. What makes a successful brand? Well, look at this one. This is on the Gold Coast, Goldsteins. They've been around since 1944, came over from Germany. I know the sons that look after the business now. And basically it was a family emigrated here. They had roots in the bakery business for years. They've morphed so many times. That's a picture back from when they first arrived, but they are famous for the quality of their pies here on the Gold Coast. Now they've then morphed into other areas. They have coffee shops now, and they do, you know, just meat pies, fruit pies, but it's the pie bits famous. And if you meet any of their staff are as beautifully friendly as the owners are. They're all down to earth. Homemade, traditional is what you get with the feeling from the whole business, and they're very hands-on with the running of the business, the owners. So yeah, it kind of just, I wanted to paint a picture. Now that logo has morphed, and I'm sorry for the quality of that. I was just trying to grab one quickly to show a brand that's been around and is relatable in the sense of a local business rather than a big brand. But these guys have morphed that brand recently and modernized it. It has changed over the years, but it's developed as they develop it, and they've only recently changed it, because obviously the idea when you're creating a brand is to keep the longevity of it. So what are some common attributes? So when you're looking at a brand, first and foremost, they're developed, you've got to develop a firm position. So a brand position is the content that describes what your company does and for whom. So it establishes what your unique selling point is and what sort of value can be found within your products, and probably how your customers should benefit from interacting with your brand. You should be able to reel this position off to potential clients in sort of 100 words, what your brand is about, who you are, you know, what it means to you. A brand promise is similarly, successful brands, they all kind of make a promise, and it's a promise that they're going to deliver something. So for example, you know, customers come day in, day out for the same type of products. They want to make sure that with those, if we take the pie example again, every time they buy a pie from Goldsteins, they're going to get the same friendly service with the same beautiful taste of pie, and the quality is going to be there. To come up with a unique brand promise, you must sit down and take into consideration what your customers are looking for, and your employees. They were really important because they're going to be selling your brand. They're in front of the brand. They're the face of your brand all the time. So you must set in stone and make sure that once you've actually decided what your brand is going to be, that you actually maintain that and you keep a strict eye on it. So we'll talk about brand guidelines later on, but it's not just about the actual look and feel of it, it's about the whole feel as well. So if you're employing new staff, make sure that the staff understand what your brand is about. You know, are you friendly? Are you, high end? Are you, the cheaper end of the market? You know, what is your product for? So good customer service, all those kind of things. Make sure the staff know what your brand is about. Next, you want to establish some sort of personality with it. So the type of organization and what you believe in. Establish a sort of a figurehead within your company. They like to relate to that. Now, I've always found when I'm doing social media and suggesting ways to do social media. A good example of this is I worked in shopping centres for 14 years, and I could tell you now that when we used to put a post up on social media to promote the centre, if I used a generic photo, it would perform okay, but it wasn't anything spectacular. And when I used to use a retailer image or behind the scenes shots or something that they felt they could get involved with and they got to know the company, then that would outperform anything by thousands. So a typical example of that would be the butcher. We'd put a photo up of him holding a meat tray and it would get 30,000 likes compared to a couple of thousand. So always bear that in mind. People like to understand the people behind the brands too. Now, one of the things they say is that brands that tell more sell more. And if you think about it, you know, people want to know the history. So going back to the Goldstein story, always make sure that you talk about your history, where you've come from. A lot of brands came from a garage, you know, born out of garages. You know, Google was born out of a garage. Apple was born out of a garage. So, you know, and a lot of banks have a long and intriguing history. So try and always make sure that you establish yourself in your local community before you expand outside of that, or as well as expanding outside of that, so that people, again, feel like they're with you on that journey. And then sort of finally, successful brands spend a lot of time establishing ironclad associations so that they're unique, tangible assets that are local, that the company clings to. So like the name, the logo, the colours, and all of that is really important when picking a brand. And I'm going to show you some examples of this as we move on. Can anybody tell me what that brand is? It's a very simple brand. Does anybody know what it is? Yay! Well done, Karen. It's Airbnb. Absolutely. See, I didn't have to say anything to show you a picture. Now, all right, this is a bigger brand, and that's obviously what we're aiming for long track, and it's not achievable overnight. But Airbnb is one of those classics that it's all about the customer. And if you think about it, it couldn't be a business without its customers, because its customers are the business. So it's got the hosts and the guests that stay in the accommodation. But these guys, when they do their marketing, they paint a whole picture about the actual brand itself, about what experience you're going to get, the quality of accommodation, the way they vet you, the way that when travelers use the accommodation, how they're going to feel. And what they do is they do more and more and more of that by putting it onto their website. They tell a story. They say what you're going to get. So, for example, you know, today, you know, when people put their houses out, you probably feel uncomfortable in the past if you went to stay in people's homes. But with the likes of Airbnb that have got these beautiful pictures, and that's part of your brand as well, the imagery that you use, that they're showing what kind of quality you're going to get, the amenities that you're going to get, and, you know, even down to places that you can eat and things like that. So, for example, you know, like if you're going to stay in Australia, they might be talking about the surfing nearby as well. And all these services are going to be expanded from the customers. So they encourage the customers to actually talk about the brands and their experiences too. Yes, absolutely. Their TV campaign is very much about storytelling. Absolutely. So you should always try to paint a picture of your brand. What else can I tell you about these guys? They do a lot of support for local community as well, so that's a good way to boost your brand too. And the customer is always at the center, as I said, of everything that they do, so they remember that, or their philosophy is given to all of their staff. And it works because, as I said, the consumers they're kind of trying to help them overcome their pain points, and everything you do in marketing is about solving consumer problems. So with us consumers, if you think about it, you don't buy a product just because you want that product. So if you were bald, you wouldn't need a comb. Okay, so if you're going to buy something, you're buying it because it's going to solve a problem for you. So you need to tell the story about how that's going to solve that problem for them, and always keep that in mind. at the end of the day, and with everything that you're doing. And when you're doing your branding, I see this all the time with brands that haven't thought it through properly. They haven't thought about the applications. They haven't thought about what kind of messaging is that they're trying to get across. These guys literally are built on the power of storytelling. So what are the benefits of of branding? Well, I suppose, as we said earlier, branding is about making customers feel comfortable. So we're all more confident in the companies we're dealing with and the products we choose to buy from. There's some kind of relationship you feel that you're building a relationship. So again, what kind of brands make you feel like you've got a relationship with them? And Apple was a really good example of that. Apple, when you go in, you're going in for the quality and the service that you get. When I went in there recently, I needed a new headset to work from here, so I can, when I'm out and about, and can talk to people. And they were very good to me in the sense that I struggle with putting them in my ears. And the guys said to me, don't buy ours, go and get the Sony ones, because they don't go right in your ear. They go around your ear. Now that's amazing service, because they knew if I bought their product, I was never going to be happy. Now, wouldn't I go back to them now for the next thing? Because I know I'm going to get true, honest advice. I'm not always suggesting that you should send them to competition. What I'm saying is that you're building that relationship with the clients. And it can be built on the quality, the reputation, the service, your flavor of something. You know, there's so many different ways that you can build reputation with people. By and large, identifiable brands offer greater credibility because we can instantly recognize a brand. Most of us fall under the misguided presumption that well-branded companies provide superior products, but that's not necessarily true either. So, and I'm sure we've all come across an example that that it hasn't been the case, but they build this trustworthiness in us, and the products and service they offer, they come across as being better than anybody else's. It's a very clever strategy, and you can harness this kind of way of doing it from them, and make sure that you sort of use those ideas into the business that you're developing. So, how to create a successful brand? Heinz, as I said to you earlier, like Heinz is I can't even do it without baked beans. My baked beans have to be Heinz. You know, when I challenge you when you leave this to go and have a look in your store cupboard and see if there's an actual range of brands that you use. It may just be that I grew up with them and that's my story, that my mum used them, so it makes me feel good. What you want to do with creating a successful brand is, the first step is you've got to understand your audience. So by establishing a thorough understanding of your demographics, and if you haven't kind of gone through this stage yet, there's a great one course that you can do on understanding your customer. Who is your customer? Because there's no point in doing all of this marketing if you're targeting the wrong people in the wrong places. You really do need to understand your customers and your audience. So when you sign up to the scheme, have a look out for the Digital Marketing 101, and that will help you with that one. Also, if you are doing the scheme, it would be worth asking the advisor that you're speaking to if you can be put through to an advisor that specialises in that, if that's a particular interest that you have. So if you understand your audience, it'll enable you to create a natural connection, which is what you want with them. Oh, sorry, keep clicking the wrong button. We want you to be unique. So when establishing your brand strategy, you need to identify what makes your business distinct from your competition. So how do you stand out? You can't have something that's too similar. So by all means, you need to study your competition so you know what they've got, but don't have something that's similar. You've got to stand out, and you've got to stand out for the reasons that you're talking about, what makes you unique in your business. We want you to be passionate. So if you're not passionate about your business or your products, why is anybody else going to be? You need to be absolutely on board advocate, using your products, making sure your staff use your products. So you quite often see in clothing stores that they'll give the staff allowances to wear the clothing because they want them in it. so to promote it. I again had this in my shopping centre when I was wandering around. I had a particular brand there that I used to love, and the store actually hooked into this because customers would often ask me where I'd got what I was wearing from, and they actually offered to give me a 50% discount because they wanted me wearing their clothes throughout the centre. So that's just another way, you know, getting out brand ambassadors on board, that if you are clothing, depending on what you're doing, you know, if you have something that you're giving advice to, getting those guys to talk about your brand for you. Be consistent. Always make sure that your brand is consistent everywhere, and that a consumer who likes your products will absolutely understand that that's the same brand. So they'll see you everywhere. You want to be able to instantly recognize it, like we did with the Airbnb logo. So you know at a glance, oh, I'm staying in Airbnb, so I know this is going to be okay. Be competitive. When you're thinking about your brand, we want, bear with me a second, I'm just going to come back. So I want you to be competitive. I want you to, as I said, we've mentioned that before, and seek exposure. Thrust your business into the spotlight whenever possible. So try and find ways that you can talk to, you know, TV, radio, put yourself out there, go to networking events, really promote your brand, hold your business card, flash your business card around, flyers, all those kind of things. T-shirt, you know, if you're going to these events, get a nice branded T-shirt that says, you know, who you are, so that you're constantly, people then start to recognize. It takes a while though, you can't, it's not going to happen overnight, and you've got to be that. And then be a leader with your whole team. Make sure that your whole team are on board with everything, as we said. So we want to conduct some market research when we're getting. So as I said earlier, this is quite a funny story, which is not related to the actual image of a brand, but more to the feeling of a brand. Coca-Cola decided back in the 80s that it would change its branding, its flavor. And it's changed its branding many times too, but it decided it would change the flavor of Coke without asking its customers. It just thought that it should update it for some reason. And there is a funny advert with Wilbur, where Wilbur is talking to his mates and says that he's been through multiple wars of drinking Coke, and now they've changed the flavour and he can't drink it anymore. So what happened was that Coke didn't do any research on this. They just assumed the customers didn't like the flavour, and Pepsi jumped on board with this. So this is a Pepsi ad that's created this, and the guy is now handing Wilbur a can of Pepsi. A lot of Wilburs never went back to drinking Coke. So when I'm talking about your brand, I'm talking about everything to do with it. It isn't just your logo. Remember that, it's everything. So think about successful brands that you've had a look at over the years, and think why they're successful and what makes them so. And then think about as well where you're going to be using the logo. So it's going to be your business name, your customer service, your uniforms, your business cards, on your premises maybe, pricing tickets. You could have it on marketing materials, advertising, massive billboards. You have to think about where you might be using it, not where you necessarily are going to use it, but where you might. And we'll touch on that again in a minute. It needs to completely, and I know I'm repeating myself on a few of these, but it's kind of to drum it in that it really does have to represent the value of your business, your personality. So there's no point in putting something out there that is not you and your business. Maybe when you're starting out to design it, as I said with the storytelling, think about your story, how you got there, and how you're going to paint that picture of your brand. When you're coming up with a company name, I always suggest to people, if you look at the image there, that what you actually do is you put the names of what you do into, the words of what you do. So if you were garden fences, you put garden fences down onto a piece of paper, and then you think of all the words that are conjured up and all the images that are conjured up with that. I once had a client who had a hands-free harness and she wanted to call the brand Ollie 21. And I said to her, why Ollie 21? What's that to do with a hands-free dog walking harness? And she said, well, it's my son's name and it's the age I was when I came up with the idea. Well, lovely, but that's not really going to help you sell your product. What you really want is something that reflects the brand and the business. So we came up and we put all these ideas down on paper about what the product actually is about, which is hands-free mostly. It's about the outdoors, and she was going to develop other products around there. But what I got her to do, and there's a tool you can use for this called Milanote, spelt M-I-L-A-N-O-T-E, and that is a really great tool for it's a completely free, and you can use it for planning, for just brainstorming, for doing sort of laying out ideas that I'm talking about now, and sparking off ideas. And then when you've got some ideas, make a few of them. There are name generators too that you can use, that you can put in keywords and it will start to give you some suggestions of names you could come up with around there. And then before you go any further, I would also test that theory with not just friends and family, but with customers. See, do a bit of research. As I said, seek advice. So I said this earlier on, you can design your logo yourself and it will save you a lot of money, and you can use some great tools like Canva. But I would still, if you can afford it, I would go and get a graphic designer to do this for you, and not just any graphic designer. You want one that specializes in branding. And I'm going to show you some examples of my brand, how the concept came, so you can see how many different versions of things that people give you. So you may have, so my company is called M4 Marketing, just M for Marketing. When I created it, I wanted something that was simple, and because I wanted to keep marketing simple, and so we came up with all these ideas. I wanted something that was striking and that just said what it did straight away when you see it. And it also partly come about because when we were battling these ideas out, a program in the UK years ago, there was a dog on there called D for dog, and I just always thought it was quite cute and funny, and kind of drew attention to it. And so that's another reason why I went, because it's the nature of what I do. So, but I went to a branding professional to get help, because even though I trained in graphic design, I still am not a brand expert, and I'm not necessarily going to come up with the right colors. I know what I think I want, and I know what I think would work for me. So for example, in mine, I wanted to use Tiffany colors, but I also wanted to keep it gender neutral, because obviously the nature again of what I'm doing. So that's the kind of things, and that's what you do. You go through with a graphic designer and you get them to work on a vision with you, and a good graphic designer will give you a list of questions. They will ask you, do you have any ideas that you've liked before? Have you seen anything that you like? Can you give me some ideas? And I'm going to show you this in a minute with the ideas that I came up with. Make sure you get a few quotes. Always get 3 quotes. Don't ever just get 1 quote. Always get a few, and ask to see a portfolio of their work, and just remain open to ideas, because a good graphic designer will take you through the steps, and they would explain why they've done what they've done. So another client I had, he is a police officer. He wanted a company that produces, he gives shift workers advice on nutrition, because they're obviously doing day and night shifts. And he wanted something that suggests that. His company is called A Healthy Shift, and the logo has actually got the shift. It kind of suggests day and night, so it's got the midnight blue and the sky blue in it with colors. So it's all subtly built in, and it's got like the sun is built in with the moon as part of the logo too. And if anybody wants to see that, I can send that to you afterwards. It's still not live on his website yet, because he's still building it, but it worked for him and he loved it. And he did have an idea of what he wanted, but that's not what he started with. Always keep it simple. You want to kind of bear in mind where you are going to use it. The other thing you might also want to keep in mind as well is that you might need to actually seek legal advice for issues such as intellectual property, patents, trademarks, that kind of thing, and get some advice from a lawyer. So if you do decide to hire a professional, it's important that you keep, as I said, an open mind to it all. Make sure that, because they will come up with a load of ideas and they've got the experience. So a good idea of costing for this as well would be around $500 for 3 or 4 designs. You should usually get 3 or 4 different designs so that you can play with them, and they should give you 1 or 2 sets of corrections, and that should allow for a very simple guidelines which will tell you the fonts, etc., and I'll show you those shortly too. Remember that when you're don't get too clever with branding, because when you get too clever with it, I've seen this as well, that people love the scripty fonts because it's cute or pretty, or it goes with what they do, or they've used their names in it. But stand back and see if you can actually read what that says, because that's the whole point of what you're trying to do. So it's all very well having something that's pretty, but does it actually stand out? If you had to put it on a car or it went up on a big billboard, would it make sense if you were reading it? Can you see what it says? And it's much easier for customers to understand a simple brand, and it's kind of a stronger way to convey your message as well. And then I've mentioned this before, but you create a style guide so that you make sure everybody on the team is on the same page with the way they use it. So here's just some examples of some of the logos that I wanted to show you and how they can be used. So this is why you need to keep in mind how you're going to use your logo. So for example, here, when you design a logo, this will be what you should always do is get variations of it. So if you see, sometimes Coles will have just Coles, Woolworths will sometimes just have the W, sometimes it will have Woolworths and then the name beside it. They'll sometimes go horizontally, sometimes vertically, so that you need to get some options, and you need to get them in the colors that you choose. You need to get them in white, so reverse, what we call reverse logos, and you need to get them in black as well, so that you can use them in any format. And you can see how they work in any format, and a good graphic designer will do that for you. They will also show you what they look like on background colors too, and you want to be able to make sure you get a high quality version of your logo. So play around with fonts and styles. You can play around with upper and lower case. Make sure that, as I said, it's easy to read, and make sure that it's really scalable, because you never know what size you're going to be using it at. And Canva, you can do it all on Canva, but you just got to remember all of these things when you do it, and how much you can invest in it. I tend to say to suggest to people, get it produced first and then get the file versions given to you so that you can then use them moving forwards in everything else that you do. And that's where you could perhaps step over. Try not to do your own graphics if you can help it. Sometimes you'll put taglines with them. So for example, you might have the company name. There's different ways of doing branding. Sometimes it is explaining what you do. Sometimes it's just giving you a feeling for what you do. There's so many different ways that you can do it. Here's some examples. So this is my logo, and none of these did I pick. So this is I'll show you what I picked in a moment. But this is what I'd asked for. And funnily enough, I had said that I liked the Unilever logo. And some of you may recognize this kind of font as the Unilever logo. I liked all the icons in it. But when I actually saw it, I wasn't that keen on it. So it's really funny how once you actually start to play with things, you realize how you don't always get what you thought you were going to get. You can see here, I really wasn't keen on this one. I love these colors. This worked for me, but I thought this was a bit over fussy on here. I found this one too clunky. I thought it was quite old-fashioned. And I didn't think that's a classic of not being able to read it properly. It's not as strong as the simplicity that I was trying to get at. So when these guys, I actually got, and when I'm talking about the colors as well, see how he's put them on the different colored backgrounds. So they should be able to mock it up for you and show you an example of how your brand will look. And if you're going to do it yourself, do exactly the same thing. Make sure that you are seeing what it will look like on a business card. What will it look like on a flyer? And if you're going to reverse out the two colors, how does it work? This is what I actually ended up with in the end. So I loved this. And when I had my, and it's all personal preference, but as I said, it immediately painted the picture of what I do. And this is what you'll get as guidelines when you should get a set of guidelines. And even if they're just simple ones, they will tell you what the fonts are, and they will tell you the colors that you can use. So that, and then, as I said, make sure you see it the other way around, and then make sure they give you a white out version, because although my color works on a dark background, I might occasionally want to use it in white. So you want to see what it looks like to be able to reverse it out of other colors. Now, sometimes things go horribly wrong. So this is why I said, be careful with what you're doing, and just make sure you do take a look. And these are just some funny examples I picked up of things when they go wrong. So, and how they got corrected afterwards. So Arlington Pediatric Centre, before and after. This is Coonawarra Pharmacy, before and after. And yeah, well, I'm not even going to pronounce that, before and after. Now, obviously, with this, they're talking about a building, but you can see for yourself that, whoops, exactly, whoops. So make sure that you do check them out, and I've seen them go wrong. So that's just some examples of things I've seen that have gone wrong. Okay, brand awareness. So once you've developed your brand, and you've used those tools, you've worked with somebody, you're happy, you've got it, you've got your brand guidelines, you know what you're going to do with it. Now you've got to build awareness of it. And so what you do is you make sure that you look at all of the activities that you're going to perform and all the places that you're going to be seen, and you work out how you get your brand across in the same easy, friendly way, if that's the case. So for example, if I take myself again as an example, I wanted to set myself out with a point of difference from other marketing professionals, that I kept everything simple, effective, and affordable. That's why my logo is simple. That's why. And so how that follows through in my business is that on my website, you will not see me talk in anything other than plain language. I explain everything that I do and why you need to do it. I don't believe in overcomplicating things, because I believe that people can feel flustered with marketing, and that it can sound like a complicated experience and a complicated subject. But if it's kept simple and relatable, then people will trust me and work with me, and should always see the results. So whenever I do something, again, part of my philosophy is I don't just do it and give them results. I do it and go through the results with them, and we do it together so that they have empowerment to look after it themselves. You should do the same with your business. Make sure you're taking your customers on that journey with you, so they feel part of the experience. And then you want to look at ways that you promote your brand. So how do you put it on your stationery? So even with this presentation, you can see that Business Station's branding is always appearing down the bottom here, and that the presentation slides, if I go back through them quickly, have all been the same. They're mostly the same design throughout. So there's consistency in everything that I'm doing. So if you haven't signed up for the scheme, this is what you get. So you get 7 hours for $44, one-to-one advice for 3 of those hours with a professional like myself. And we've all got very different skill sets. So as I said at the start, mine is very general marketing. I've worked in it for so long that I can cover most areas. And then we can look at a specific track. So if you did want to develop your brand as part of this scheme, you could work with somebody to do that if you wanted to. These are the kind of things that we offer the mentorship in. So you can social media and digital marketing, could be online security and data privacy, websites, software, anything, you know. Canva, I run a workshop on how to use Canva. So if somebody wanted to design their own logo using Canva, we can sign you up to that workshop. So if you are eligible and you do live in Western Australia, Queensland or Northern Territories, then you can, which we know you do, so you can sign up to the link there and jump on board with us. Does anybody have any questions for me? Have you managed to kind of explain through what you need to consider with logos effectively for you? I can't see any questions coming up there at all. Okay, well, I will leave that up on the screen there for you and wish you a lovely day. And if you do think of anything after the event, you're welcome to sign up, and thank you. Thanks, Sonia. If you do any other questions, yeah, just ask for some further advice from the advisors, and they'll be happy to take you through it. Good luck with everything that you're doing. Does anybody want to ask me any advice about their own brand that they're doing right now while we've got the chance? It's really hard when we're not talking and it's being done in a webinar scenario. It would be nice to be able to ask a question face to face. Okay, well, I look forward to seeing you on your journey, and I wish you all the best with your businesses, and I'll say goodbye. It was lovely to meet you both virtually. You're welcome. Bye.